Okay, so this is was a Chumash methodology here, but we're switching over temporarily for Pesach because the Gemara says we should do Pesach stuff or something. That's not the excuse. The excuse is I want to do Pesach stuff, and it's the only time. So I put out a vote about whether. Okay, let me back up. First, I got to show you, for those who don't know, this is if you buy only one Haggadah in your life, this is the Haggadah. This is Torah Chaim, and we all, I think, hopefully know that Torah Chaim is the best at everything that they do. They have all the Rishonim, and they have amazing footnotes. And it is all I need every year. I mean, I have other Haggadahs, but like every year, this is like my main thing. But this is not the best version. The best version is my personal version, okay? Because what you do is there's a lot of intro pages, so you can tape in whatever you want. So I taped in all of Hilchos Chametz Matzah, then all of Hilchos Yitrodei Torah, Hilchos Korban Pesach, select halachos from Hilchos Avodah Zarah, stuff from Hilchos Melachim, the entire Sefer Shemos through all of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and a bunch of other stuff. And then I also am a big fan of highlighting good pshatim and stuff like that. So
why are there so many intro pages?
I don't know. And I don't know what they say anymore because I did this so long ago. You know, in fact, if I had,
like people like different commentaries intros.
No, I would never take over that Dr. John. No, like publisher stuff. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, not intro like that. Yeah, publisher intro. And I would want to read them now, but I guess I taped over them. Actually, you know what? But it looks like I didn't tape over the essential stuff about each of the editions. So I don't even know what I taped over.
Just look at now.
I could, but then it would kill the mystery. And what would life be?
Yeah.
But you're right. Good reasoning. Yeah. So so the vote was I put out a vote about whether so the question was asked if I could recommend one פירוש, what would it be? I say the Ritva, and the reason why is because the Ritva is clear, concise, consistently has good ideas, and also, and this is something that I don't really. I don't know how well this is known. This edition of the Ritva on Chiddushei Ritva on Shas on the Pesachim volume has two things in the back. It has the entire Ritva's Haggadah with footnotes. Then it also has something which I have not done extensively called, hold on. Oh, the Hilchos Seder Haggadah. So he walks you through the entire Haggadah halachically, and you get interesting insights from that also. I did not copy that for you, but that's the thing. So the vote, the options were either do the Ritva on the entire Haggadah, so we get one, approach to the entire thing, and that's what I do every year. Is I tend to pick one of the Mefarshim, and I stick with that one that entire Pesach, and I rotate, and I haven't done the Ritva in a very long time, but since it was asked me, then I decided to do it. And then the other option was to pick a sugya and then go through a bunch of Mefarshim on that sugya. Okay, so the vote was about evenly split, and I decided to compromise for that reason. So what we're going to do is we're going to anchor ourselves in the Ritva, but that way we get the breadth and we get one view. But then when we are interested in other shitos, then we'll take them up and try to define the machlokas. But the onus is going to be on you if you have another view that you want to look into. I'm going to do that if I'm curious, but in other words, if you want to seize another here, since Yaakov is the leader of the opposition, you can have pass that down. So you can point out stuff that we go through and generate machlokas, and we can discuss it. I guess I just don't want to. There's a problem that happens every year is that sometimes there's potential for every year is you get bogged down in one paragraph in the Haggadah, and that's all you think about for the entire days leading up to Pesach. And it's not that that's really bad. It's that it could be limiting, and especially if it turns out that the people at your Seder are just not interested in that paragraph, and maybe I'm in a different position because I lead the Seder every year and I have for the last 18 years or whatever. So I feel I want to get breadth and trigger lots of ideas. So that's my. Okay, I mean that works. I mean it's every family has their own stuff. Yeah. I was going to say one more thing, which is in terms of methodology. Haggadah is a very methodology-oriented thing, but not in the same way that we've been talking about, which is it's not so much as to how to learn the Haggadah, it's what is the Haggadah doing and how does it relate to the mitzvah? And I don't want to get too much into what is the mitzvah, because that's really what we're doing in Rambam B'Kiyut here. But suffice it to say, it's a complicated mitzvah because on the surface, Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, right? Just tell the story, But then you have the question of, first of all, where did the Haggadah come from? No one knows. right? No one knows who wrote the Haggadah. We just know that it's pretty early. And how are the things in the Haggadah Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim? And if they're not Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, then what are we doing? Like, you seemingly only get to the Sipur, like for example, the Arba Banim. Like, is that part of Sipur or is that pre-Sipur? Or like the anecdotes about the Tanaim, So the question is like, what are those things doing, and how do they fit into what the mitzvah d'oraisa is? So we should keep that in the back of our minds as we go. But like, part of what I want to do also is like, see if we can get from the Ritva or the other guys what the what the function is of whatever paragraph we're doing, and like try to get some semblance of like, what are we doing tonight? I mean the night of the 15th of Nisan. Yeah. Okay. One word which is not in yours. It's just in we mentioned our Ram Vakir here that according to the Rambam, the mitzvah is to tell the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim kafit sachas lashon hamasaper, according to the eloquence or the personal formulation of the teller. And the question there is, so then what role does the Haggadah play, especially because if it's like, let's say in Tefillah d'oraisa, according to the Ram, that's how Tefillah was given as a mitzvah d'oraisa, is you formulate it in your own way. And then later on, Anshe Knesset Haggadah came and they created a text. Is that what happened here? I mean, certainly it wasn't done with the official like stamp of approval of halacha, So the Ritva has an approach, which is, he says this is in his Hilchos Seder HaHaggadah, in the Mosar of Kukut, page Yud Aleph, it says, it's just two sentences. Okay, so that's also interesting. You're obligated to, a person is obligated to tell on this night to the women and to the kids and to all the members of the group about the topic of Yetzias Mitzrayim. V'im eino yodea omer Mah Nishtanah v'seder ha'hagadah. So that sounds like he's saying Haggadah is like a crutch for people who can't do it on their own. Okay, so it is interesting that he holds that, and it's not. I'm not saying there's no shame in a crutch in a halacha crutch here, because as you know, it's difficult. Like you have to. There's all these guidelines of masli b'gnus masayim b'shavach and dorach aravi avi and like the chayv adam lo kosher lo mar shlosh devayim elu b'pesach lo yasadich vaso. There's all of these like halachic like objectives that you have to like check off as you go through it. So it's not like it's easy for people to do on their own. But he is saying, like, I think this is the clearest statement I've seen after reading that Rambam of what the relationship is supposed to be between the mitzvah d'oraisa as the Rambam formulated and then the Haggadah. I'm not saying everyone holds this, but it does fit into the Rambam. Yeah. Okay. So that's just the intro there. Okay. All right. So let's start. All right. So I handed out all the Ritvas. Let me just put it up on here. And I think the best way to do this, I mean, ordinarily, I'm a big fan of the method of like, what do you call it? Well, okay, let's decide. I mean, I'm a big fan of the, reading the text and then raising the questions and then answering them. But my fear is going to be that that'll bog down the pace. So what do you want to do?
I think
because the other option, I'll say the other option is to read the text, but then essentially be learning the Ritva and like reverse engineer the questions to see what he's focusing on. Because there's so many questions that like, but yeah, what were you gonna say?
I think what I'm inclined to do is like try to do what we do in shiur, but in like a broader scope. Like let's say we'll say like we'll ask like as many like the questions that we have on like the paragraph as a whole.
Yeah.
And then questions on particular clauses or points are like we'll see those as like about like new.
Okay, so basically differentiate between major and minor questions. Yeah, okay, fine. All right, so let's translate here. And I actually did not look at where they got this Nusach Haggadah from. I don't know if this is the Ritvas. Is there a footnote that says anywhere where anything about the Nusach? It might be in the intro of the thing. Where's that footnote one? Oh, that's the issue. All right, fine. Yeah, so I don't know if this is the Ritvas or not. If it is, and I rejoice because there's one Haggadah that doesn't exist that I want to exist, which is I want a Haggadah that has the different nuschaos lined up in columns or something like that you can see what the changes are. Because one of the best experiences I've had, which I recommend if you have a lot of time on your hands, when I was leading the Seder for my family, and we do it in English because not everyone speaks Hebrew. So this was before there existed any electronic version of the Haggadah. So I typed up the entire Haggadah and I translated the whole Haggadah. And it was a really good experience that really forced me to pay attention to the text. And then later on, about 10 years later, we switched over to the Nusach HaRambam of the Haggadah, and I did the whole thing again. Obviously, I didn't have to type everything, but it made me aware of all the little Nusach changes, and that was a really valuable experience. As you know from Tefillah, like I'm into the Nusach differences. So I don't know if this is the Ritva or not, but it'd be nice if it was. Okay, Ha Lachma Anya di achlu avahasan bar de Mitzrayim. This is the bread of Anya. See, that was what I missed out on. We don't have any melodies or songs because I never had a Jewish childhood. So I don't know any of these songs, but then we that could be a plus and a minus. Ha Lachma Anya di achlu avahasan bar de Mitzrayim. So this is the bread of Anya, typically translated. There's three translations, right?
Only heard this like poverty.
Right. So poverty is one. I think, yeah, it's in the same category. I'm just trying to think if you could. Yeah, I think it would be ani then. Affliction is the second one, and then the third one's a drasha. It's not, I don't know if it's literal. Bread of answering. Right, lechem oni nalav devarim harbe. Right, that's what Chazal say. Okay, there's lechem oni in the pasuk. Yeah. All right. So that our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. Kol dichrin yetev. Anyone who is hungry, come and eat. Kol ditrich yetev yipsach. Anyone who is in need, come and skip. No, come and Pesach, right? I mean, it's weird that they make it into a verb. Hashata haka lashan habab arda Yisrael. Now we are here. Next year we will be in the land of Israel. Hashata haka avdi. This year we are servants, slaves. Lashan habab arda Yisrael b'nei Chorin. Okay, this is definitely not Nusach Ashkenaz, right?
Yeah, it's not because
I don't think we say Lashan habab arda Yisrael b'nei Chorin.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So we get to see different nuschas then. Good.
Yeah.
What was it? Say it again? Okay. Next year we will be in the land of Israel, free in the land of Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I would say, man, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I've forgotten now what the name is.
It's
Hashtahacha.
Yeah, we're
Okay, yeah.
No Ba'ar Israel.
Oh, really? No. Is it?
The prior clause is Ba'ar Israel.
It's a good idea. Hashata hacha l'shana bab Ba'ar Israel. Hashata avdi l'shana b'nei Chorin. Yeah. Okay, so
this paragraph seems all over the place.
Right.
First, it's talking about matzah, right?
Right.
And then it's switching to inviting people. I don't know what's going on with inviting people either. Then it's talking about what's gonna happen.
Yeah. It's a lack of unity. Classic question was in Aramaic. Yeah. Why is this how we start off the Seder?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. See, this is kind of why I don't want to do all the questions because there are a ton more. I mean, yeah. So let's do let's take the route of reverse engineering it and then bringing up new questions. Like, I don't want to go through the whole thing of like doing every single one.
Yeah. I mean, all I want to do is like just that.
Yeah.
Like, I think like.
All right, that's fine.
Pausing for a minute, thinking about it.
Like
stopping, thinking, asking a couple questions, then going on.
Okay. All right. So
even more Bakiyas, even more.
Yeah. So he says, Yesh Omrim, Ma Omrim Kain Balachon Arami, Kadesh Lo Yikansu Hashedim Etzleno. Right. So this is a classic shot, right? So that there are those who say, and apparently this is what did it say? Siddur Rashi, Sefer Paris of Rashi, that we say it in Aramaic so that the demons don't come to us. Right. So what's the chashash? The chashash is that if you invite them in Hebrew, they can understand Hebrew. But since they don't understand Aramaic, then you're safe.
Yeah. Except the issue is other people don't understand Aramaic either. So they're
Yeah. Yeah. And then he says, we'll go back to think about it in a second. V'hanachon, but then the good shot is the Einam Seder HaMishnah Ela Mitikun HaAmoraim. So that's interesting. It's not from the Seder of the Mishnah, but it was established by the Amoraim. So that, I guess, by inference means that all the other stuff in the Haggadah is from the Seder HaMishnah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think factually
in their natural language.
In that language, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to get clear here. So some of the text of the Haggadah comes from the Mishnah. You know where the most of the text comes from, I believe? Say again? Of the Haggadah, yeah.
People who lived in the time of the Mishnah.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know about Rabbi Yehuda. I don't think it was Rabbi Yehuda. It was it's from the Mechilta. And I don't know which Mechilta, right? Because there's a couple of Mechiltas.
There's a couple of Mechiltas.
Isn't there? Isn't there Mechilta,
Yeah.
Rabbi Yishmael, and then isn't there another one?
So
Maybe I'm
could be.
I'm inferring that from the fact that I know Mechilta of Rabbi Yishmael is a thing, I think, but I don't know. Yeah. So in other words, it seems like the parts of the Haggadah are from this 9.
Wait, most of the Haggadah is that? I thought there's just like one part that is.
Well, there aren't really of it obvious from that. I guess not most.
Yeah, that's like
Most of the Sipur, I guess is what I'm saying.
There's like I think it starts like 3 seconds, like a Mechilta style, and like a
right. But I think it's like it's the drushos it is a lot of the drushos. I mean that's the bulk of the Sipur. Yeah. Okay, and then tiknu also b'lashon bavli k'dei sheyavinu hakol ki bazeh halashon hayu medabrim u'regilim bo. Right. So they established it in the Babylonian language so that everyone would understand, because this is the language that they spoke and were familiar with. So here we have a machlokas. I mean, we don't need to go anywhere else because the Ritva quoted it. He served it up to us on the platter. It doesn't pass by Yaakov because he's doing it on his own. So can we define this machlokas and especially the shading thing? I mean, it's such a different kind of answer to the question, right?
Yeah.
And what's the deal with shading, right? I mean,
yeah.
We just get if someone wants to borrow my Haggadah also, like you want 2 copies down there? Okay. You have to look until you get there, past all the thick intro pages. Yeah, so what's shot in shadim?
I'm reading there when someone asked really about this, like what Russia says.
Okay, well that's one shita, right? So one shita is that they are imaginary, products of your fantasy, right? That don't actually exist. So that's like the Ibn Ezra and the Rambam hold that. Rambam also presumably holds that, but the fact is apparently I believe he never mentions shadim anywhere. The Rambam. This was this is Menachem Kellner's theory that when the Rambam waged a polemic against the like elements of like proto Kabbalah and like mysticism, he did it in 2 ways. Is sometimes he would call them out, and like let's say like when he's talking about the people who write like divine names and like believe in that as a charm, but then the other way he would do it is by just not mentioning it anywhere, just not talking about it. And then the third way he would be by like reframing it. Let's say, for example, by defining angels as like laws of nature, like basically, I guess the kids these days would call it reclaiming, right? Reclaiming, or is that the way? No, is that the term? When you take an insulting term or a negative term and like yeah.
It's a reasonable.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting the term wrong though.
You might be reclaiming the term.
Yeah. So yes, apparently the Rambam doesn't mention shadim. So the Ibn Ezra and the Rambam and others hold that it's products of your imagination. And then the other shita, what's the other shita? Probably more.
Spiritual being that can have.
What do you mean by spiritual being though?
Purely spiritual.
But what do you mean by spiritual?
Spiritual. It's not normal creature.
Not normal creature.
I'm gonna say non-physical, not like tangible.
Okay, yeah. So the other shita is that they are real creatures. Let's put it that way for starters, right? But the most extensive thing written about shadim that I've seen is in the Ramban, in the Psukim in Vayikra of, I think it's in Vayikra when it says they won't offer their sacrifices to the Seirim, like to the, the goat shadim or whatever in the Midbar like they used to. And he goes into like the physiology of them, So I don't know if he would use the term spiritual, but he holds that they're made of like the ethereal elements, like air and fire, and that they do eat food and like they do like procreate and they, there are certain similarities between them and human beings and other ones that are not. So like they talk about them in physiological terms, but they're just more fluffy, not fluffy. They're more ethereal. Yeah, ethereal, So the question is when Chazal talk about shadim, then anytime Chazal talk about it, you have to ask yourself, are they saying it because they thought that these creatures existed and they're speaking literally, or are they speaking in mashal form? So for example, when they talk about Shlomo Melech and his interactions with Ashmedai, the king of the shadim, and like he's quoting Psukim and like doing weird stuff, that's clearly a metaphor. Even if all of Chazal held by shadim, they're not speaking about shadim there as literal creatures, So the question is here, again, I don't know what, I'm under the impression Rashi held by shadim as that they actually exist as creatures. But the question is like, is that what he means here? That like, we don't speak in Aramaic, that the whole reason for Ha Lachma Anya being in Aramaic is that we don't want to invite shadim, or is it to be understood as a mashal? And if it's a mashal, then like, what's the idea? And why doesn't the Ritva, like what's the mashal between him and the Ritva? Yeah.
I don't have an answer, but I have two questions.
Sure.
First off, what does mechilta mean?
Mechilta, see, I was banking on you to say.
So I'm not exactly sure.
You'll answer what.
Where the mechilta is relative to like the sifra and the sifrei, like
Yeah.
they do relationship bit. But it's like the I say the way that they would be Doric spoken with it, like like the part of the hagadah where it's like where it's like going through like it takes like a topic and then it goes through it part by part and then it has like a small like explanation of it.
Right.
But that's like what the sifra does and what the sifrei does and what the mechilta does. It's
Mechilta is a person?
It's
No,
a Tana'itic work. It's written by Tanaim, and so
before the Mishnah, there's I don't know if it's before the Mishnah, but like that
It's like breaking down into sukkim?
it's just going through the psukim and being doris then.
yeah.
It's like a work that does that.
Yeah, so the Rambam says in his Haggadah to the Mishnah Torah, so he says, Chibru Chachmei HaMishnah Chiburim Acherim Lefarish Divrei HaTorah. This is in Oaths Chavav here. So the Chachmei HaMishnah compiled other compositions to explain the words of the Torah. Rabbi Hoshea, Talmido Shel Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Chibur Be'er Sefer Breshis. So he composed a commentary on Breshis. Rabbi Yishmael perished Me'eleh Shmos ad Sof HaTorah, V'hu Nikra Mechilta. So Rabbi Yishmael explained from Eleh Shmos until the end of the Torah, and that's called Mechilta. V'chein Rabbi Akiva Chibur Mechilta. Rabbi Akiva also wrote a Mechilta. V'chachamim acherim Acharim Chibur Midrashos, and then all the other Chachamim wrote Midrashim. Hakol Chubar Kodem HaTalmud HaBavli. Everything was before Talmud Bavli. So I guess those are the two Mechiltas. Mechilta Rabbi Yishmael and Mechilta Rabbi Akiva.
Do you not talk about the friends, right?
That was earlier. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was right after he said about the Mishnah, I think.
And then just second question. How do we get to shadim from this? Like
Right. So that's that I don't he got to shadim because he's quoting Rashi. The question is how did Rashi get shadim? And the answer is what? But the Rashi, does Rashi there explain? Oh yeah. Well, it doesn't say that the Rashi is. See, I don't know where that Rashi comes from. First of all, that's Miyufas Rashi, and then there's Siddur Rashi. Yeah. So I don't know if Rashi there says it. Look at just look at the footnote. Let's just read footnote 1 here. Sefer HaPardes LaRashi. Okay. Rashi B'Pirish Ha Gadash. I don't know what that is. Blah blah blah. Bisha blah 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 blah. Visham. Shahari Leil Shimurimo. That's what it is, right? So the pasuk says it's Leil Shimurim. It's a night of protections, and then one of the drashos is Hamashumar Min Hamazikim. It protects you from damagers, and mazikim is another word that's often used interchangeably with shadim. So that's a question on this, right? If the night of Pesach is protected from Mazikim, then why do you need? You shouldn't have to worry, right?
You can say anything tomorrow and no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the other question, right? Is that yeah, right, yeah. Right. The you see from here. Yeah, I think the Abravanel like mockingly asks questions like that. I mean, because he also says it's not a he doesn't like that reason. But I think that's one of the questions of like they're so polite that like they're going to wait for an invitation, you know. Yeah. So I think we're comfortable saying that shadim here is not literal shadim. Because that just seems too absurd that they just don't understand Aramaic and like they're gonna wait. So
yeah, it's like it gets into a whole host of questions of like what are like all these like mechanisms involving shadim.
Yeah.
Like,
so if we take the approach of assuming that shadim are, and this is where you have to have some flexibility here. Shadim are mazikim, which are like imaginations or fantasies or fears that can be harmful. So if we work with that, so then is there an idea of what are these shadim? Yeah.
if you say anyone who wants to can just come in and you can like I guess there's a certain like worry that like people are gonna like take up on it and like either like they're gonna get some sort of harm from people by just inviting everyone in.
Uh-huh. So then, but then you say it in the language that everyone understands, though. Meaning, even though that's not the answer, I mean, I know that's a second answer, but like, point in fact, you are saying this in a language that everyone understands, which so maybe I'm missing what you're saying.
No, it's a good question.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's half answer.
Yeah.
Right, because if you believe in Satan back in the day, and they believe that they didn't speak Aramaic,
Yeah.
maybe it's like it's a kanos that they'll actually go ahead and say this. Maybe they wouldn't actually say it. They believe Satan.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so it's then. So it's a counteracting type thing, like in the same way. We see this famous example of this in the Seder itself, right? What's the famous superstition that Chazal had to address in the Seder? Zugos, right? So what's the deal with Zugos? Pairs.
You can't do things in pairs because that's bad.
Yeah, is that there was a superstition against doing things in pairs, and so Chazal. What was that?
I did not know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's in the Gemara.
So Chazal, actually, you know what? This is a good. Hold on, let me see if I have Meiri on Zugos here. There's a Meiri on Zugos. I'll have to dig it up.
It's in Brachos.
Is it in Brachos, the Meiri?
I don't know. Different.
Oh, that's promising. If you can find it, that'd be great because it would be good.
Yeah.
I have nope.
It might also be in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Because there's the whole thing with asparagus and it's a drink. It's not a vegetable.
Clearly, we're all holding in Meiris on asparagus. It's a pet sugya of mine. Well, while we're waiting, I'll tell you the Meiri outside is that so it is clear from the Gemara, Chazal, in the time of Chazal, people had superstitions around pairs of things, and so the problem now is we have two pairs of cups, right? So Chazal had to give answers as to why those are not going to be bad luck or going to be harmful. So one of the things is that they quote this Gemara of that it's a night that's protected from mazikin, so you don't have to worry about it. I think another one is like you're doing a mitzvah with it, and the mitzvah protects you. You know, so they give these answers, and the Meiri basically has this thing where he says, you see from here that even though Chazal were against superstition in terms of superstition being prohibited by Torah, if there was no actual avodah zarah involved, then not only did they tolerate it, but like they even like spoke to the person in their own foolish framework to like reassure them and and to keep them doing stuff. So that's a plausible thing that if people were worried about inviting shadim in, then they could counteract it by making them do it in Aramaic. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what the Meiri's point is that that wouldn't fly, like that you're Yeah, either they wouldn't listen to them, or they didn't want to push it that far and risk. You can't you can't push it.
At that point, why can't you just say like they're protected the same way that they say with the parents, like you can protect them at night.
Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, just change the language. Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're sending a text, then they could just incorporate it into the text. Yeah.
And it's not like you have to do that much. It's just make it Aramaic.
Yeah. Yeah. We can find it later.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, I had a creative theory a long time ago, which I don't know if I still hold by. Yeah. So I don't know if this is going to still be good. I don't even know if I could remember it, but I think the theory was, okay, so the theory is based on an interesting fact, which is that one of the Amoraim would do this every day. He would say, Kol Dichlin Yesev Yeho, Kol, well, you wouldn't say Yesev Yevsach. We say anyone who's hungry to come and eat, like, and open his door. So, I'm sorry, I got to back this up. So I meant to say this in the intro. So in the Seder tapes in the tape library, I forgot what the number is. Then, Rabbi Chait goes through all the Haggadah stuff. And the theory he has then, again, I don't know if this is just like one thing or if this is like what his theory is he holds that, the phenomenon we pointed out that a lot of the Haggadah is not Sipur, and there's a lot of stuff before you actually get to the Psukim. So the question is, what's all that stuff doing there? So what Rabbi Chait's theory is that all the first parts of the Haggadah are like a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It's like a concise halachic guide, not in the style of a Shulchan Aruch where they're saying halachos, but like exemplifying the halachos that you should do. So let's say, for example, there's a halacha of Kiddush Halayla, right? So part of Kiddush is recognizing the differences of the night. And then, I guess Kiddush, okay, that's a bad example because that's actually mitzvah, but outlining the mitzvahs in the night. So Mah Nishtanah is you're outlining the categories of mitzvahs of the night. Okay, and then Arba Banim, there's a halacha of Lafi Dato Shel Ben Avi Malamdo, according to the son's mind, the father should teach him. That's exemplifying that. So that's his theory. I don't remember what he says for all of them, but so I had this theory. This might start sounding like one of those conspiracy theories, but we'll see because it has a lot of moving parts. Is that if Rabbi Chait's theory is true, then all this prefatory part in the Haggadah is exemplifying certain halachos of the night. So what halacha would this exemplify?
I forgot what it's called. Burning households for
That's interesting. Is that what you mean? Yeah. So the problem with that, so just to go over the basic facts, right, is that you have to register for a Korban Pesach, and you can only eat from that Korban Pesach, and everyone has to be attached to one, and you have to have enough people to consume it. So the only problem with that is that takes place before you say this, and by the time you get here, I mean that's a problem on Ha Lachma Anya in general. Yesev Yivsach, come in and make and join for Pesach. You can't really invite people at this time. Now you could say there's easy answer, which also explains the Aramaic thing. When was this instituted? You're actually not far off. This is way after Pesach. This is in Babel, right? So you could say that's why they did it, but then it wouldn't be exemplifying minui. But what halacha does involve inviting people to your house for a meal? What do you say? Oh, I thought you said pheasants. Yeah, more than chesed, more specific to this, like an actual mitzvah. No, that's before Pesach. Not necessarily specific. Simchas Yom Tov, right? Simchas Yom Tov, it's an actual chiyuv to invite poor people to your house to partake in your Yom Tov meal, and if you don't, then it's not Simchas Mitzvah, it's Simchas Kreso. Then it's not Simchas Mitzvah, it's Simchas of your belly, right? So that led me to think that also has to be incorporated in, because all the halachos of the night have to be incorporated in. Okay, but now here's the creative part. Okay, and this is Russia. Go easy on me. There is a danger so if that were incorporated into the night, there's a unique mitzvah. There's something unique about the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov and giving to the poor compared to all the other mitzvahs of the night, which is that it is the only mitzvah of tzedakah in the night, which is in Mishpatim, which, by the way, if you ask the question, this is another question going on the Arbanim. The Chacham says, Maha Eidos v'achukim v'hamishpatim, asher tiva Hashem Elokeinu Hashem. He's presumably asking about, in the Haggadah, he's presumably asking about the mitzvahs of the night, right? The question is like, what mishpatim are there in the Haggadah, you know? All of them are chukim or eidos. Chukim being mitzvahs that the reasons aren't clear, and eidos being testimonials about historical events, you know? So here's my theory, okay? Is that the shadim that we're worried about is a danger that you will relate psychologically to the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov and welcoming Aniyim as a ritualistic action. And therefore you say it in the vernacular language to reinforce the fact that this should be an actual invitation. Meaning if you said it in Hebrew, it would just be this like ritualistic, like, and we invite the poor in, you know? But if like you say it in English, then it's like an actual, you're actually like trying to prompt them to do this, you know? I realize I don't like the theory, but it's just too complicated of a theory, but it is an interesting thought.
How is that shaded?
Satan is harmful imaginations and psychological forces. So it's to do a mitzvah of actual tzedakah in a perfunctory, ritualistic way and not to actually do it, like to feel like you're doing it by saying it, then that's psychological. I think it's too complicated though. And I kind of doubt that that's what Rashi meant. Yeah.
You shouldn't say it in English.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying you should say it in English. I mean, according to the, like, maybe the Ritva even says this explicitly at some point, or maybe the Abudirim, that you really should be doing the Seder in the language people understand, you know. The only exception really is perhaps possible exception. This is I asked for Pesach a long time ago. I don't know if the Pesach has changed, but the Pesach I got was, say everything in English, or so people can understand. Except Hallel, and then the I don't remember if the brachos also, but like I know we say everything in English except for the brachos and Hallel. But yeah, because people should be understanding it. That's the whole point of the mitzvah.
And you do not also say it in Hebrew.
Some things I do, but it takes up so much time. Like I would prefer to do that, but it takes up too much time for the guests.
Yeah, meaning you're not specifically trying to say it in Hebrew and Aramaic. So you're not saying it in both English and Hebrew.
No. But actually, what I do is the Arami Ovid Avi. I say the psukim in Hebrew.
That makes sense.
I think because we're darshaning them, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I'm saying you're not like both saying in English and also going to the local.
No, right. Yeah. So I guess we're stuck here for now.
Yeah,
It's hard, Shaden.
Yeah, there's a shame I can't remember, but there was a Q&A with Rebbe like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And someone asked about this.
Oh yeah.
And I just don't remember what he said. But part of the issue was the person was strongly pressing the opinion that Rashi couldn't have held that Shaden actually existed.
Oh yeah, I hate when people do that with Rashi. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clear.
Like, yeah.
I mean, it's 100% clear that the Ramban held that Shaden exists.
Yeah.
And like, just because Rashi is not as explicit as Ramban, and like Rashi was in that part of France, where like they were not like delving into the science in the same way as like the Rambam's time.
Yeah, and it was like, it was just like it wasn't like whatever you're gonna say about Rashi. It's not that he couldn't have been saying what he sounds like saying. He must be saying something completely different. I mean, you can say that he's meaning something specific with it, but he's not like.
And again, I have no problem saying that, like in particular instances, then Rashi is using Shadim in the same way that Chazal use it allegorically. But
it was just like.
Okay, should we go on?
Yes.
Okay. Lama Nikra Anya. Why is it called Anya? V'alo afilu k'matzah shel Shlomo hu muteres. He muteres. You can't even eat matzah like Shlomo. What is matzah like Shlomo? You can't eat matzah ashira, right? Oh, a quantity. Footnote 3 is just Yerushalmi. Okay, fine.
I mean, I guess it's nice.
I mean, because we do say Suda Shlomo, like I feel Kasuda Shlomo, like on a Suda Hamafsekas that is on Shabbos, right? We say you can even eat like a Suda Shlomo. So that could be like a lot. Knowing Mishle, I think he didn't eat a ton, but he ate in moderation, but
No,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. Here's Rashi. Lefisha Isas Pesach he kashir Isas midbar. Thank you. Shehi asir sa'ifa. So the flour or the dough for the Pesach is the amount of the midbar dough, which is a tenth of an ephah. Who korban ani haba bidali dalos. And that is the amount that is brought with the korban of an ani, of a poor person. All right, fine. So that's like a very roundabout way of defining it as like an ani. I'm sensing a pattern here. Quote Rashi, reject Rashi. That's not good. What does that have to do with the matzah of a mitzvah? Okay. If you eat that amount, it's a healthy appetite, very healthy and blessed. What? Did the matzah gathers or is gathered and is diminished and is not successful like chametz?
Well, I guess like
What?
it's.
Not pulling us on it.
No, I think it's like
That makes sense to me.
volume wise.
Is what?
Volume wise, it's like
It doesn't produce as much because
yeah,
it's not rising.
It has like a certain poor result in terms of not,
Yield.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it says, "Ki mi'uga acha shel isa revucha te'afe ugas chametz gedola ad ma'od." With one cake of dough that is, what's revucha? Presumably the opposite of chametz. Then you can bake a huge loaf of chametz. V'od lechem oni lefishin na'afa b'chipazon ve'eno mastik lahachmetz. Also, it's lechem oni because it was baked with haste and did not have time to ferment or to rise. Yeah. So that's a lot of answers there.
So what was the question on Rashi here?
The question on Rashi is he's saying that this thing of the I don't know if I fully understand Rashi.
I think he's
Isas Pesach dough.
I think he's saying it has to be a certain quantity, which is the Asiri Saifa.
But a certain quantity in terms of what? Like, you don't need, like, I could just make a small batch of matzah, can't I?
Maybe this is the cap or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like it has something about the quantity.
Yeah.
And he's saying this is
Yeah, it's quantity that corresponds to the korban that an ani brings.
Yeah, and he's saying this is actually a generous amount, so it's not like a poor amount.
Yeah. So he likes the answers of basically it is so he's saying poor bread is that it's like nebbish bread, like it's not like a successful bread goes on to rise and be very full.
Yeah.
This can't produce much bread.
Not in terms of like satiation, but like in terms of like the actual
Size. Yeah, right. What did you say, Chaim?
I think the last,
The last crowd is good.
Right.
Yeah, because yeah, right. Meaning that and they say that like a poor person doesn't have like the luxury to sit around like, letting his bread rise. But I have not heard this one of the Ritva before. The first one he brings. Let's just think about that for a little while. Because I'm inclined to think of it like, I guess my mind is drawn, and maybe this is why you like the last one. I don't know, but like that actually has to do with the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So it's like, what do we get out of framing it as bread that is not very successful? Like I just don't see. Like, yeah, it's true, but that's how we're going to identify lechem oni, like bread of poverty. And like, and then also like, let's say like the idea of, the whole thrust of the story is Maskil b'gnus u'mefayim b'shevach. Start off about how we were slaves and we didn't have anything of our own, blah, blah, blah. And then like God took us out with all this money. So you would start identifying with the poor by their bread. That's nice, but like small piece of bread, not big. Like what do we get out of it is my question. You're saying that he's preferring it because of the translation?
maybe, but I think the first draft is broken right on.
Yeah, meaning like, for example, bread of a poor person is like one step removed from poor bread. Like, maybe it's poor bread. Lechem Anya is poor bread, and therefore it has to be a quality in the bread itself. Yeah, I mean that would give a reason why he would prefer that, but I still feel like what's the idea of that? Like, how is this going to change? Like, this is how we identify matzah, lechem Anya, and I feel like a lot of ideas I've heard about matzah, it's like, yeah, that's like what matzah represents. This one does not feel like it's on that level, didn't rise that level, so to speak. Yeah. The other thing also that makes the other answers better is the Achla of Hasana Bar de Mitzrayim, that our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. That it fits in much better with that also.
Okay, so this isn't about like the Seder.
Yeah.
But I think this is about an idea that I've heard about matzah.
Okay.
That like one of the things that is happening when you're like it's about like Sukkot and Pesach, that like Sukkot you're like it's like taking you out of your like your household, and this is like disrupting like your like food.
Right.
So you can't just eat whatever bread you want. You got to eat this poor bread.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. The Rambam says that in the Morning Nevuchim, that you have to remember the times of the bad amid the times of the good. And so on Sukkot, just like it's the harvest time, and you're rejoicing all of your prosperity. Then you get halakha kicks you out of your house, and you have to remember what it was like to be in the midbar when you didn't have anything. So to on Pesach, when you're celebrating your freedom, you have to realize like where you started off and what it's like. And so the emphasis is on bad quality bread, right? I mean, bad quality in the sense of quantity also, but like it's like inferior bread, and that helps you to identify, to recall the poverty that you had, and then help you appreciate the good that God did. So that is actually relevant to Pesach, that you're using matzah as a vehicle, just like you use sukkah as a vehicle to remind you of what we went through in the midbar and what it would be like to not have like this prosperity. You use this. So what's good about this is a lot of people don't like matzah.
Yeah, but this is like you're supposed to.
This is a human not liking the matzah, or not that you should not like it, but that it tastes bad and it's like not good quality. Yeah, that's the point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate matzah.
I want to.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with that. Okay. Onward.
But
Yeah.
not so satisfied.
Cold vehicle. Anyone who's hungry, come and eat. פירוש bo. What was he? Oh. Okay. So he's making it refer back to the matzah. Come and eat it. Interesting. Yeah, you're right. That you need to be hungry on Pesach. In my mind, I always translate ra'ev as ravenous because it starts off with the same letters.
I think it is, right?
Ravenous, yeah. On Erev Pesach, so that you eat matzah with an appetite. Yeah, so that's saying a halachic thing. Oh, so that's interesting then. That's a completely different spin. He's not, you get what he's saying?
Well, you're inviting like members of the household.
I don't think he's saying, no, I don't think you're inviting. He's saying all who are hungry come and eat it, meaning he's talking to all the people who are eating matzah and who are in a state of hunger. In other words,
So what does dichfin mean?
Dichfin is hungry.
Okay, it's everyone who's hungry.
Everyone who's hungry to come and eat matzah. He's like, in other words, this is not an invitation to the poor people, according to him. Well, he's making this into a halachic thing about achilas matzah.
Yeah, they're supposed to be hungry.
And that fits into the, yeah, right? Meaning it's a description of all the people who are present at the Seder, presumably. all you hungry people, why are you guys hungry? Because you have, I mean, if you're following halakha, then you're gonna be hungry at this point, right? Because you haven't eaten any meals, you haven't eaten any chametz, you know, you haven't eaten any matzah. So all you hungry people, come and eat matzah.
You're
Yeah.
not talking to the poor people. He's talking to the
Yeah, I
poor
mean,
people.
I'm making that assumption that you're not talking to poor people because he's saying that this is talking about matzah,
Mhm.
and he makes the object that you're eating matzah, he makes the hunger into hunger for matzah shel mitzvah, right? It's a different reading than I've seen.
Yeah, a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also appreciate it because it feels that it gets around the weirdness of like not actually inviting people.
Right, you're talking to the people at the Seder,
Yeah.
right? Although it's sad because they're not going to eat for another couple hours, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're hungry at this point, and it's like
Yeah.
you're
Now,
just-
what I would say without reading ahead is now it also makes more sense. It also makes more sense. That's a gesture of solidarity. It also makes sense that we are going to invite people for Pesach now, and this gets rid of around the minui problem because all the people who are here have already registered on the Pesach. So this is basically like a statement of like zeros
yeah.
of like solidarity in saying, let's eat our matzah, let's eat our Pesach.
Yeah.
Okay, let's read what he says now about the Pesach thing. Kol ditzrich yesi v'yitzach im ein lo, because if he doesn't have it, roi litol min hatzedakah. It is proper for him to take from tzedakah. Afilu Rabbi Akiva, even according to Rabbi Akiva, what does that footnote say? The Amar aseh Shabbat chachol al titzarach lebrios. Right. That's not about Pesach. It's that if you better to make.
It's to not get so it's good. It's if you have 14 meals worth of food, then you don't collect from the kupa because you collect from the kupa for a third meal for Shabbos.
Meaning better make your Shabbos like a whole where you only have 2 meals than to be dependent on tzedakah. So he's saying here, even Rabbi Akiva would say you could take from the tzedakah. Today she's kayim hilchos pesach, so you can fulfill halachos pesach. Okay, I will go back. I just want to read the whole thing. V'ish od inyan, and there's something else in the matter. Ki anu omrim ki kishehayinu b'mitrayim hayalanu lechem tsar umayim lachatz b'mida b'mishkal uv'matzura. We say that when we were in Egypt, we had bread that was narrow bread. Was it like breadsticks? Umayim lachatz and water. What was it? Biscotti, yeah. Umayim lachatz b'mida b'mishkal uv'matzura. And we had like limitations on our water. V'ata yesh lanu echol v'savoa v'hoser lechem v'yayin v'derech cheres. But now we have all this food. Okay, so the first part, not quite getting. I mean, it sounds like it's just stating a halacha of you are entitled as a poor person to collect from tzedakah for this, but I don't know why we would be saying that now.
I mean, you need to be done with like a carbon Pesach.
I guess.
You can still get one.
I guess.
Yeah, you get money for it.
Yeah, it must be. But then the second one I liked because that is then an opposite of the well, sorry, it's not the opposite. Sorry, I was thinking of two trains of thought at the same time. It is part of the appreciation of the chayrus that you're about to. In other words, we're about to do two things. We're about to do this mitzvah of eating matzah, which is great and we're hungry for. And unlike the time when our food was limited, we're about to enjoy like this sumptuous meal, of all this great food, which is a manner of chayrus.
Yeah. So it's like also the misogyny inside the Shabbat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really different character to this Ha Lachma Anya.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, so I guess we didn't finish yet. Let's finish and then let's theorize about the entire thing. Kaf hagirsa hanachona, that's the proper girsa, or maybe this is the proper girsa. Hashata hacha o hashata hacha. So hashta hacha means now we are here. O hashata hacha. I think that means the same thing.
This hour we are here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the expression "this hour" means the same thing as now.
Yeah.
And it repeats it in order to strengthen the matter.
Yeah.
Is that the end of it?
The footnote says
Oh, no.
Lomatasi Gorsim Kane.
Okay. We got more Ritva though, right? On the next page. V'gam anu omrim, and we also say hashta hacha anu mekayim mitzvahs lechem oni bilvad. Now we are only being fulfilling the mitzvah of lechem oni alone. Lashon habab are v'chule nekayim mitzvahs haPesach kechol chukosav v'kechol mishpatav. The next year we will fulfill the mitzvah of Pesach according to all of its laws and judgments. So that's making it in. So according to him, this whole thing is about the mitzvahs. right? The mitzvah halal of the night. So we'll get back to that in a second. Let's just finish reading. V'yish omrim ki lekach nomar nemar b'lashon arami. Oh, now he swooped in with another answer for Aramaic in the end. K'dei shelo yakiru hamalachim v'yikatragu aleinu kishanu misparim b'chozeh. Ah, interesting. So that this is another thing. The malachim don't understand Aramaic, right? They understand all the other languages, but not Aramaic. And that actually comes down to halacha, right? Because you can't ask bakashos in Aramaic in Shemona Esrei.
Where the Aramaic is single out.
Yeah. So it's actually a machlokas, whether it's singled out or whether it means broader languages. But here he seems to be singling it out. So the malachim don't recognize and accuse us or prosecute us. When we glorify ourselves with all this, and will recall our sins that we are not worthy of being redeemed. So here, I'm not so concerned about the malachim. Like there's an idea that malachim don't understand us. The essence is that even though we are engaging in this like joyous depiction of what we're going to do, we have to recognize that we're still in galus,
and that we don't necessarily deserve it.
And we don't
deserve to be redeemed.
Yeah, we might not deserve to be redeemed, So it is an interesting thing. I can really relate to this because I, for one, don't feel obviously it'd be like, oh, it'd be cool to do Korban Pesach, but like, there's a comfort to being in galus. Like we're used to it and we're happy with it in the extent that we're not like weeping at night at Chatzos, for the Korban Mikdash, So like the changing to the Aramaic, which is, I would have said Aramaic is the lashon of galus, But I understand why he's doing the malachim thing of that we have to be aware that there are accusations that can be made of us that we're not worthy to be redeemed. And that's like the idea of the malachim. So let's paraphrase. So what is this whole Ha Lachma Anya according to him? Now that we've run through the Ritva machine. So we have so it ended up being that he did kind of give two reasons for the Ha Lachma Anya in Aramaic, right? One is so that people can understand, and the other is so that we don't bring up our avonos and like get accusations that we're not worthy of being redeemed. Then bread of poverty means that the bread is low quality. And then anyone who's hungry can eat matzah in accordance with the mitzvah of being hungry for matzah. Anyone who's in need, come and make Pesach because you're entitled to for the halacha. And now, unlike in Mitzrayim, now we have all this great food. And now we are here and we can only do the mitzvah of matzah. But next year we'll be in Israel and we'll be able to do all of the Pesach also, but we're not, and therefore we're not going to glorify ourselves now because we don't want to draw attention to the fact that we are not redemption worthy. So how would you characterize the function of Ha Lachma Anya according to him as a unity?
An introduction, but like it actually makes sense as an introduction.
Okay, can you be more specific?
Because it's introducing this framework of the poor bread, and then it's setting up the Yitzias Mitzrayim from like being hungry and like eating hunger, and then going to Korban Pesach.
When we say Yitzias Mitzrayim, he doesn't really. I know Ha Lachma Anya says Ba'ar de Mitzrayim, but he doesn't really emphasize that, does he?
No.
He does kind of in the where we are now with the Yesef Yifsach. Yeah. I feel like that Yesh Od Inyan is going on both the eating and the Pesach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the cultivating Yesef Yichol is that like the goodness of like we had poor bread, and then the called the Yesef Yifsach of the Shavach of Korban Pesach. And then saying, and like, there's also this parallel that we're gonna be redeemed and be in Israel.
Right. Still don't feel the unity. Or maybe I don't feel the function. I mean, I get what you're saying that as an intro, but like, what would be lacking if we didn't say this? And apparently,
Intro.
apparently, we didn't say this, or at least the Tanaim didn't. I mean, the lurking thing under here is a zecher of the Churban and the recalling the fact that we're in Gullus. I mean, you have to say that because that's literally what it says in it, and it's in the lesson of the Gullus, so like that's the thrust that I'm wondering about here is, and again, the Ritva is acknowledging this theme, but like starting off the Seder, recognizing that you are in Gullus and in need of redemption seems to be thematically appropriate,
Yeah, I guess it's framing it as there are parallels between what we were talking about happened and what they're in the situation that we're in as like the start of this.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that highlighting the fact that you are getting out through your involvement in these mitzvos, and that's where the sluice is going to come from, is also important here. But that's what happened with Bnei Yisrael also, right? Is that they were there. I mean, that's the midrash that Rav Matzav ben Parish says that V'ata Aaron be'eria, that you were naked and bare, and you were naked from the mitzvos. That the time came that that Hashem swore to Avraham to redeem his children, and they didn't have any mitzvos to be involved in, such that they'd be worthy to be redeemed. So God gave them dam mitzvah, dam milah, and dam pesach, the two bloods. And then that's how they got redeemed. In other words, the mitzvahs were what they needed to get redeemed, and that's like what we're emphasizing here also. I mean,
I feel like this is actually like.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like it's actually setting up like a whole new framework for viewing the Haggadah that like.
Yeah.
Like the thing of like, oh, you should view yourself as if you're like slaves in Egypt. It's not just like we should be trying to relate to this historical fact, but it's saying we're in this situation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we're not
Okay.
even, like,
Good.
like,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good. So now we need to read the halacha. So let me just get the halacha. Halacha we're gonna read. What the halacha we're gonna read? Go on.
Zion.
Yes, correct sign.
That was a total guess.
That was a good guess.
I mean, it's either sign or cut.
Yeah. Hold on.
So
it says
hey.
halacha vav. So yeah, very good.
Just a paragraph.
Behold over the Chayav Adam, and here's where we have the girsa thingy. Liros esatzmo or laharos esatzmo. In each and every generation, the person is obligated to see himself or to present himself as though he himself left the slavery of Egypt now. It says, God took us out. And regarding this, the Torah commanded and said, you should remember that you were a slave. That is, if you yourself were a slave and then you went out to freedom and were redeemed. So what you're saying is like, that is literally us recognizing how we are still in a situation that was comparable to them, in that we're eating poor, inferior bread. We're in a foreign land. And we need to do these mitzvos in order to get redeemed, and we can't do them yet. And if we don't have enough zechuyos, then we're not going to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not joyous.
No. I mean, there's the joyousness of recognizing that we have this relationship with Hashem.
Yeah.
Like when they were in Mitzrayim, they didn't have this history that they could relate to about this. They're saying we have the history, so we can be like happy about that.
Yeah.
But it's like.
But it's like the tone of this thing is like somber.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I think we need to know that anyway because it says Lashana Habab or Hashtahafa.
Yeah, honestly, we're about it now.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, good. That's one idea. Pacing is very slow. All right. What was that? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're going till Patos. You want to do let's just see here. Do we have time to do one more section?
Mah Nishtanah?
Like 7 minutes.
7 minutes? Okay. Anyone else? Wanna do one more section? All right, let's just do one more section. So this is the Mah Nishtanah. So really quickly, Mah Nishtanah hala zeh mikol halelos. How do you guys translate Mah Nishtanah hala zeh?
What is different? this
Was
time?
changed. As
So you do it as a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's I think it's
yeah, I'm not specifically saying a question.
I think the first one is a question. The rest is a thing.
I see. Yeah, because the other way is to read Mah
Isn't that like the
Nishtanah.
Rambam isn't it like
Rambam has two of them. Well, Rambam has there's the natural Mah Nishtanah and then there's the Kore reading Mah Nishtanah.
Right, I think
Yeah.
when you not in the hour.
Right. Yeah. But the other way to say it is as exclamation. How different is this night from other nights? For on all the night, yeah. I don't know if it's clear. There were no punctuation marks back then anyway. So
Yeah, that makes more sense in terms of what you're saying in this.
yeah. In anumat bilan afilu palachas. On all other nights we don't dip even once. Tonight 2 times. On all the nights we eat chametz or matzah. Kula matzah. Tonight all matzah. We eat other vegetables. Tonight maror. All the nights we eat sitting or reclining. Tonight we all recline. Yeah, this is. I was reminded of this question because of his girsa. I mean, for all of them are weird because on all of the nights, I mean, they did dip once. Like that's the whole reason why karpas, when is alarming. So it's supposed to be alarming to the kid. It's like you're taking away the dips as soon as you start. Like dipping was normal, so it's where he says we don't even dip once. And then
It's weird that. Sorry, this is in general. It's weird that like there's this whole discussion about dipping or not dipping. Like really, it's just like like
Like a personal preference.
like a personal preference.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
Like I'm gonna have bread with hummus, or I'm gonna not have bread. It's like
It's not like a halachic or like traditional thing. Like,
you know you always have a dip, or you always don't have a dip.
Yeah.
But that's what it means by saying, in honor, but even up in there's no like,
For you?
there's no like harassment.
Yeah, we don't have to
Right,
dip. We don't
right.
have to dip even once, right? Is that
Yeah.
This is just a cutesy thing here. I mean, we'll go into the fly more than wrong with the cutes, but how like the dipping is really just a sample of you're supposed to do stuff to get the kids to ask in general. So reading the Ritva's halachos, and he gives funny examples, some of which I'd heard, some of them not. So he says minhag rabbeinu hagadah haramban zal. So first he says what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to remove the table, right? That's how the Rambam has it, is like you take away the table. Because they had the small tables back then. When they were kids in the house, after they did this whole thing and they removed the plate, he would say like to the waiter, like we're done here, we've eaten too much. So the kids would see and ask. And he says, nearly and then it seems to me that if the kid reaches out to take the bread, you take it away and say you eat too much. And he says that's the shot in the Gemara when it says that you snap the matos. So he said that's what he means. So I thought that was funny here.
Wow.
And then people also ask the question of on all the nights we eat chametz and matzah, which is weird because you don't eat matzah on all of the nights. And also, like, if you want to be a brisker, there's no such thing as matzah on other nights because matzah only comes into existence on the Lali Tesvav because that's the Shashes Malachim Lefanacha. But I don't think that's the best question. And then maror, but then you also eat other things tonight other than maror. You eat karpas. And then I mean, that you have to say the way that we said it before, or that you just said it before.
I
This,
can say that for all of them.
well, that, yeah, you can say it for all of
You can
them.
say that for all of them.
I mean, you
All
it's
of
talking
them,
about obligations. Yeah.
You have to do this. And
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I guess part of it is like if these are yeah, okay, fine. I'll accept that. Yeah. Ritva now, right?
Yeah.
The in anumosgin fosheni ajigmar Ha Lachma Anya. You don't pour the second cup until he finishes Ha Lachma Anya. V'yidrashub inyan Pesach, and expounds on the inyan of Pesach. That was another thing I read when I was looking earlier. He says the Ravid had a minhag to darshan a pasuk about Yetziat Mitzrayim before starting the Seder, like a Pesachta. Interesting, yeah.
Why?
I don't know, but I mean, he's saying here you should be Dorsh. And maybe it's because that's where you do it. Like you do your own version of the story. And that's actually what we do in our house is that we before we do we say Ha Lachma Anya, and then before we do the rest of the Megillah, then we all tell our own like insight related to Yetziat Mitzrayim of that year. You know.
So when did you say you do that?
We do it before we start Mah Nishtanah, before we do, after we do Ha Lachma Anya.
Mhm.
Then we pour the cups, we mix the cups, only al kosheni Mah Nishtanah, and you say on the second coast Mah Nishtanah. Okay. Shebakol halilut in anum abilim afil pamachas kodem suuda. Okay, v'halayla zeh shtei pamim kodem sudasenu. Echad b'karpas, echad b'maror. So all the nights we don't dip once before the suuda. Why do you have to add that? I guess because you are dipping in the Suda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't dip before you have the bread.
Yeah,
Like,
right,
You
yeah.
dip the bread, but you don't dip before the bread.
Right. Okay, good. So that makes sense. So he's just trying to clarify the parameters of this difference.
Sorry, you don't. Isn't Mara after matzah?
But it's before the Suda, I guess.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, technically, it's after you've made the start of the Suda with the matzah, but I guess it's before you eat the meal.
Yeah.
Hello. Kasher l'Rashi. Do we not eat vegetables on other nights? Here. What page is this? We're gonna stop soon, but we were right over here. Oh, okay. Or we can take it out. Whatever.
Can I keep this one?
Oh yeah, you should keep it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Kasher l'Rashi. Do we not eat other vegetables on this night? Is that my question because of the karpas thing?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the question that we said about like we can eat other vegetables?
Wait, you guys said you were almost done, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Pirush hu zal ki kol mash anu ochlin b'layla hazeh hu marer elenu zecher v'chulei. Everything we eat on this night is marer. What is marer elenu zecher? How do you? Is bitter towards us memory. I don't know what this is. 18. What does 18 say? Oh, and there's that phrase again. Haggadah for Pesach. That's what that stands for. Haggadah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Eno nachon. He really doesn't like Rashi. Elakach pirusho. This is the explanation. Shabachol alelos an ochlin mitchila sudasenu shar yirakos metukos. So on all of the nights, we eat before our su'uda other sweet vegetables, shemachshirim ha'adam lachila, that prepare a person for eating.
Like appetizer.
What was that?
Appetizer.
Appetizers, yeah. Now we make the beginning of our su'uda marer. See, so this is interesting because in the Yemenite minhag, they would eat appetizers after making kiddush.
I like that one.
Yeah, and the reason why is because you don't get into a situation where everyone is starving, and like slogging through. Now you can make the argument that they should be starving so that they can be starving when they eat matzah. I think that's where the tension comes in. But yeah.
But you can also make the argument that if you're starving, you won't go through it properly.
Yeah,
So
right,
you
yeah.
have children who are just not going to be interested.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a real weighing game, and yeah, and I'm not aware that there being any isser to eat other stuff
Yeah, I remember at Rabbi Ginsburg's Seder, we would have like coffee.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
started my good,
yeah.
coffee program.
Not drink 4 cups.
Now if you drink 4 cups and you're also staying up until the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't drink coffee past like 1:30 in the afternoon without it affecting me at night. So I'm
Yeah.
with you there.
Actually, at my Seder, I always make coffee for myself and coffee for Naomi.
Oh yeah. All right, this is a good place to stop though, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
we're getting up to,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, sounds good. And we got a good Ha Lachma Anya approach.